He's probably sitting out there
All
and let people
right, here we go. What is up, everybody, and good evening. Oh, there we go. I'm gotta get rid of my cell phone there. I'm super excited to have everybody. Right now, I got iffy signals. DK from Adventures in Dirt, oldies and goodies. I'm excited to have everybody on the live stream tonight. It's been a pretty good week for me. Not a lot of digging, but a lot of stuff on the channel and really moving forward. But what I'm really excited to have is these guys from Heart Breaker Relics. If you don't know Kenneth, Spike, and Randy over on Heart Breaker Relics, these guys are huge into finding Native American points, arrowheads, pottery, and the cool part about it is they have an absolute great time doing it. So looks like we got Ralph McGee in the house from North Myrtle Beach. Cool. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go straight into this. So let's see if we can get... So we got 2 out of 3. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Matt.
We have Spike and Randy with us, and I'm super excited to have you guys on the show. We've been cutting up a little bit already, but I think you guys are pretty good at that, huh?
Oh, yeah. We've had some experience.
So let's just start off way back in the beginning. Both of you guys, I think, can probably handle that part, right?
For now, we can remember it.
Yeah, well,
I guess me and Spike met each other. We started working together back in '94 at Chevron here in Pascagoula, and it's kind of one of those relationships. You meet somebody with the same interest and same sense of humor, of course. So that's probably the biggest thing. Before we even realized we were both relic hunters and got to cutting up, and I guess about a year later, we started hunting artifacts over in Louisiana where Spike had grown up, and it's just been that way since. You know, we picked up. My son grew up with watching us relic hunt Chance. He was part of the original Heart Breaker Relics when we started, and as we talked about a little earlier, he's off working in Savannah right now, so he's missed the last year and a half with us. And of course, we got to bring Kenneth on with us, my nephew, and he fell right in the Chance's slot. And he's been a hoot to hang out with.
He's a quick study.
Yeah. Of course, he's been kicking mine and Spike's butt for the last year on points and stuff. But we've enjoyed it. It's been great time.
Yeah. I told somebody the other day, if you wanted to, you could go back on video and watch Kenneth find every point that he's ever found. Because I believe everything he's ever found we've got on video.
That's kind of cool, you know.
It's
just a lot of fun. We all enjoy it.
What really blows me away about the whole YouTube thing is that you can go back and find, you remember when you found this point, and then you go, yeah, it's right here in this video, and I love that part of it. Exactly.
You know, we can go back and see it on a video, put our hands on it in a case, you know, and years from now when me and Spike, we may not be here, but you're expecting your first. You can go back and say, hey, these guys I interviewed a long time ago, and this is them right here, and that's kind of cool. You know, it's there for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, both of you gentlemen live in Mississippi, right?
Yes.
Right, but we're about an hour apart.
Yeah.
About an hour apart.
We live right on the coast of Mississippi, Mississippi Gulf Coast. He's in Long Beach, and I'm in Pascagoula.
Okay. So it's a bit of a travel. You guys hunt together every weekend, or obviously as much as you can?
Not every weekend, but during the summer when the creek we kind of wait till after turkey season down here. I turkey hunt, deer hunt. That's one of the things that we all have in common is hunt season. We hunt a lot. So when the creeks warm up a little bit and turkey season's over, we get together and we'll start hitting the creeks. The rest of the time we're in fields or digging and whatnot. But
and that kind of goes back to how the thing got started. For years, all we did was walk fields, plowed fields, and we were only able to do that in the fall. And Then about 3 years ago, when we started getting in a creek to hunt and realized we could find them in the creeks, we realized, hey, we can do this in the hot part of the year. Then we realized, heck, we can dig too. So now we got pretty much the whole year covered. So
we dug a few times last year. It was in the 20s down here. You know, so it gives us, you know, if I want to take a break from deer season or whatever, we'll go find a field and we'll dig. And you know, you don't have to worry about sweating to death like we do right now. But it gives us another avenue. We know we can hunt relics year round now.
So and so talking about hunting relics and walking in fields, I started off. I'm a metal detectorist, you know, but when I grew up with my dad, you know, all we'd do whenever we'd go deer hunting is we'd walk around, and if you weren't looking for a deer, I was looking on the ground for something on the ground. But
that's why I never killed any more deer than I did.
Well, that you can't shoot.
So, but things have changed a lot. I mean, you talk about just hunting fields. I mean, I guess for y'all and like me, is you find a plowed field, that's a gold mine.
Oh yeah. And it's getting harder and harder to find those places. You know, a lot of people, especially down here, fields that used to be soybeans or cotton or corn, a lot of people are into planting the pines now. You know, it's a money crop for later on. So those fields are you know, not to mention the hunting clubs are kind of picking everything up. That used to, you could get land around here fairly cheap and hunt on it and kind of do what you wanted to as far as relic hunting, and that's kind of a thing of the past now. Luckily, we've got family land and leases that we can get on. That's keeping us going for now.
Right. So yeah, and that's the other part is leasing with hunting seasons and stuff like that. I mean, that really hurts you. I mean, before you could go on a private permission, and then now you have a hunt club that not only is that.
They and we try to be respectful of even you know, we've got leases and so we understand that. You know, I don't want to be in a bow stand and somebody come beating and bang around down the creek. So we kind of wait to do the stuff on the creeks or anything that's adjacent to another property till we know that there's nobody hunting. And you know, that's, you end up meeting people like that. And a lot of times, you know, we met some guys here a few weeks ago that we were on a creek trip, and within a couple minutes they were already inviting us to, you know, hey, park your trucks here, you can take your kayaks out here. So doing this, you're not only finding relics, but you're finding friends and you're finding people with the same passion about this that we have. You know, you're a metal detector. We like to metal detect. I don't get to do quite as much of it as Spike does, but it's that finding something that, you know, is 10,000 years old, or a Civil War bullet, or something that you know that it's been years since another human hand has touched it. And the folks of us that do that all have that passion. And people talk about us. We get really excited, overly excited a lot of times. We get made fun of about it, but everybody shows that one way or another. They may not show it on the outside, but I promise you, the people that do this, like you, it's that feeling inside when you've got something like that, and the respect that you have for that artifact, you know.
Well, I think that's the cool thing about this channel is that the emotion shows, and you know, they're the guys who are like, oh man, look, I found this, but you know, inside they're screaming and jumping up and down. Like, I'm not going bouncing off trees like I've seen on other TV shows, but
we try to contain it a little bit. A lot of time, before we get the cameras on, the biggest part of the celebration is, you know, it's died down a little bit, which my daughter gets on us a lot about. She says, y'all need to turn the volume down a little bit. I said, well, that was 2 minutes after we found it. We're at the low part there. So
you can't help. I can't help, and Randy's the same way. Can't help getting excited when it's sometimes we go a while between artifacts. We may dig 2 or 3 hours and not find anything, and you've turned over 3 or 4 cubic yards of dirt and gravel, and you finally find something. that's pretty exciting to me.
And there's been times that we go all day digging in a field or in the woods somewhere, and you know, you just want to give up, and you want to say, well, you know, there's just nothing right here. And then you find one point, and then you go, well, let's go a little while. I can end up with 3 or 4 points for the day, and it's just hard to contain the enthusiasm and the excitement when you roll that out on whether it's in a creek on a sifter or you pop it out with a shovel or in a screen, you know, sifting something in the woods.
Yeah, it's just, and then I relate a little story to you about that. Okay. One day, and it's on video, Randy and I had walked about 6 hours in a creek and hadn't found anything. We had only found one catch to dig, and we came up on another little pocket of gravel, and I was too tired. I felt it. I said, Randy, you want to dig this? He said, I got a little pocket here I'm going to dig. Go ahead. Within an hour and a half, we had pulled like 18 artifacts out from under one stump, and most of that time was filming. Yeah. So, I mean, they were just bam, 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 one right after the other. And, yeah, it's the excitement when you do something like that, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a rush.
And then we went back the next year and did the same thing.
Yeah.
Just right close to it.
Yeah, in just a few minutes one evening found 7 or 8 points, you know. So,
wow. So, and that's something I was going to ask you guys about. When I've noticed a lot of your videos now, you're actually digging in pine forest and, you know, pine plantations, which, how do you find those sites? I mean, you guys have some pretty sizable holes, you know, 3 to 4 foot and, you know, 2 to 3 foot. How do you know how to look for those places?
Before I let Randy explain how we find it, I want to think this year we've been lucky enough. The guys at Pine Belt Relics found that site, but and have invited us, and we can't thank them enough. I mean, we've been up there hunting with them half a dozen times.
Zach and Mike and Nathan. That's like I said, Pine Belt Relics, and we were lucky enough to like we talked about meeting friends and people with the same passion. We were lucky enough to meet up with them at an artifact show in Meridian last year, and
met them through YouTube,
and just can't thank them guys enough for inviting us along with their hunts. They've been on some creek hunts with us. Unfortunately, we didn't put them on the points like they've been able to put us on, but
you can explain to them now.
Back to your question about what we look for typically, and most of you guys that you know. In these leases, hunting leases, you'll have a plowed field, a food plot or something like that, or even agricultural sites. If you're finding stuff in those fields, most of the time you're going to have a waterway right there close to it. These Native American cultures, they live somewhere out of the floodplain where they had a water source. And we're not talking about hills. A lot of people want to conflate, you know, did they live on a hill close to water? They didn't. If you think about it, you didn't want to live way up on a hill and have to walk down a hill to a water source. They were on ridges, flat ridges that would accommodate lots of people. Another thing people tend to think about are these early Native Americans as little pockets of people. These civilizations were thousands, literally thousands of people living in these areas over tens of thousands of years here. So the stuff that we find and other relic hunters find along these creeks is out of the floodplain, and they have a water source close. So if you're finding it in a field and you've got a wooded area between that field and a creek, then there's going to be relics in that wooded area. You know, a lot of people, farmers are going to leave that buffer zone for erosion purposes. Right. They're going to leave that tree line, you know, the 20, 30 yards from the field to the creek bed because they don't want the field to erode. Those artifacts, those folks camped as close to that water source as they could out of the floodplain.
Yeah, and if you're finding chips and flakes, we'll do test holes. We'll like to run them through a sifter. That way we're not going to miss anything. But usually you can see them on the ground in a bare spot in the ground. But if you find in chips and flakes, you're on the site. So.
And you were talking about the holes and stuff. We started digging with Pine Belt Relics guys over there. They dig these holes, and you're just moving the dirt and kind of going through it, which was a lot different than what Spike and I had done previously on the properties in Louisiana. We have a sifter set up on legs, kind of like we have for the creek hunting.
Like
and so Spike will man the sifter, and I'll shovel, and we'll go through the dirt that way. Kind of a different technique. It kind of gets to the same result. We're just not quite as fast as Zach and Mike are with those shovels. Those guys move some dirt and fill them holes and kin it. Me and Spike aren't quite the shovel experts that they are. I can dig a hole and put it in a sifter for Spike, but those guys got it down pat.
Yeah, we got a system worked out. Randy, I can dig 2-3 shovelfuls of dirt, and I'm spent.
That's a day.
So I can push that dirt through the sifter and let Randy just keep throwing it in there. And at the end of the day, we divide the points up. So, and that works pretty good for us. So.
Yeah, we've had people say, "Yeah, I couldn't do that and let somebody have a point that I dug for." But we've been doing this for 20 some odd years together, and it's the getting to do it with each other a lot, as much as it is anything.
Randy's trying to enjoy me as much as he can.
Yeah, before
the time I got left. Yeah.
That's we like to talk about Kenneth. We got to bring him along with us, and he fell into this, and it's just been a treasure. It really has been able to do this here lately.
We lost his sound.
Yeah, we're getting a little audio thing going on. I'm just trying to adjust it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So let me see. Oh, I got you. All right. How about that? Yeah. So what I was going to ask, and that's while we move on from that, is the interesting part is that it is the fun of doing this. It is the friendship that you build, and the fact that you're both hanging out together. So that's what I like about hunting together. I've found some incredible stuff by myself, but very rarely the most fun I have is with someone else.
Yeah, it's not as much fun to scream in the woods by yourself, is it? You look around, you want to go, wow. And I have found very few points by myself in my life. As a matter of fact, the first point I ever found I was by myself, and it was just one of those things that it was cool, but finding it when you got 2 or 3 people with you that enjoy it as much as you do, that's Spike used to deer hunt a lot. I still deer hunt a lot, and those are, I enjoy it, but I enjoy that time in a tree stand by myself. But it's a different type of enjoyment. I enjoy the nature part of it, and that's the other thing that we do like to do on our channel is we want to take people along, not just to see a rock that we find or a piece of pottery, but to see the entire spectacle of what we get out in the great and outdoors.
And give them the whole experience as much as we can, as much as we can with our videos and our pictures and stuff like that, and show them. And we're having fun and try to get that across to people that, this is, it's more like we had one video. It's more than a hobby. I mean, it's just,
it's an adventure for us, and we want that to come across in the videos, and we get comments that people, there's people that watch the videos just for the nature scenes, whether it's a frog or a snake or a bird. People tend to like that, and I think that's why we've had the success that we have. Not that we're tens of thousands of subscribers, but the folks that watch us are kind of diehard followers, and it's because they know they're going to see something other than a rock at the end of the day.
So I guess my question now is how did you gain all the knowledge of the identification of points? That's the other thing that really blows me away.
I'm gonna let Spike take this one.
We don't have that,
and it looks like, I have a good friend who is an archaeologist, and she lives out west, and she's incredible because she can pick up a flake of a point and know material, quality of the person who made it, and what it was likely off of. You guys are right up there with that.
first, we don't have a lot. What little knowledge we have, Matt, 90% of it we've gained in the last 3 years since we started this YouTube channel and this Facebook page. We have had so many people that commented and helped us. We have one guy that lives local, Mr. Rob Odell. We'll send him a picture sometimes, or he'll comment on our videos and can help. And once you learn what a point is, once you learn the characteristics of it, then
it's a little easier.
Yeah, it's a little easier. We'll still make mistakes. We misidentified a point a few videos back, and Rob corrected us on it, and from now on, we'll probably know the difference, and if not, then we'll just won't say anything.
Yeah, which is probably what I do most of the time.
But the material we've learned most of that, I would say, in the last 3 years, Matt.
And that's with the help of a lot of people on YouTube and you know,
other hunters
that just helped us out. You know, I'd love to say that we're just, you know, we know this stuff.
No, we don't.
We don't. We learn just like anybody else does, whether you're a mechanic or whatever. There's always somebody out there with a lot more knowledge than you, and that's what we try to do. We hunt with guys that know more than we do, and we gonna pick their brain, and we try to share that knowledge when in a video, and a lot of time that's come from somebody else that does know. So we want to give those people the proper credit for helping us out.
Well, I think that's cool. I mean, that's the whole point of building a community, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we never imagined that we could learn this as much as we have in the last 3 years, just through social media.
Yeah, it's been you know, Spike signed up on you know, we've got a lot of relic hunting sites on Facebook that we're part of. Unfortunately, where I live, my internet access is limited, so we kind of have to depend on Spike as far as all the social media stuff.
Plus, you don't know anything about computers.
I'm computer illiterate, you know. So if y'all happen to get on Facebook or anything, or even YouTube, most of the time you're talking to Spike, because like I said, I don't have any signal. Like I tell Spike, we're still waiting for the last season of Brady Bunch out where I live, so kind of limited on what I can do.
And I'm retired. I've got nothing but time.
And I've got 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to say hi to a couple folks. I think we got our volume issue fixed. Diggin with 7 is hanging out with us. History Resurfaced, Fiska Fish, Ralph McGee, Tony Venison. But yeah, it's great to have you guys in the chat. If you have anything for Randy and Spike, be sure to throw it in the chat. I saw Colonial Fiend. What he said? He said that he heard there's more Clovis relics on a nudist resort next to the Cactus Hill site. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound like a fun place.
I don't want to go there.
No.
So as far as like age of your relics, what general time period of the artifacts are you guys finding?
Probably mostly archaic, because that's just the biggest cultural period. We find a lot of woodland stuff, but yeah, mostly archaic. And that is. Hold on, and I'll look at my chart. 8 to 1000 BC. So that's 2 to. Yeah, I'm looking at my chart up there. That's 3 to 10,000 years ago. That's
wow.
a big time frame in there.
Wow.
Yeah, most of them are archaic. But we find, I said, some woodlands and woodland, and then we'll find some that are in the
Mississippi and stuff.
Yeah, the what do you call it? The proto-historic. But
is that about the oldest points that you guys find? You ever found anything like Clovis or just post?
No. We find some transitional paleo points. Randy found one in a video about 3 videos back. He found a San Patrice, and
probably my oldest point.
Yeah, that's 8 to 10,000 years old.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, we find a few like that, but not very many.
You know, when you find something like that and you pull it out of a hole in a creek and it's been buried there for, you know, you don't know how long. It may have just washed off a ridge, or it may have been sitting in that hole for the last 1,000 years. You just don't know. And you put it in your hand for that first time, and you know you're the first human being in 10,000 years that has held that rock. That's a special thing, you know. And while we're on that, we get a lot of comments. Of course, you guys on YouTube know you're always going to have people out there that don't understand the hobby. We're not digging burial sites. We're not desecrating a burial ground. These are tools, they're relics of civilizations that have came and gone. You know, a few hundred years from now, somebody's going to dig up my dad's yard, and all of the craftsman stuff that my brothers have lost out there is going to be picked up. You know, that's kind of where we're at. We're picking up stuff, and you know, years ago, amateur archaeologists, they're probably wasn't as scrupulous. As within anything, there's always going to be a bad egg in the bunch, but
and nobody's going to. I guarantee you, there's nobody that has more respect and reverence for the people that created these things than we do. Yeah. And you can't do it this long without
appreciating what they did. I mean, they hacked out civilization with a rock.
With a rock, yeah.
You know, no steel tools, no DeWalt stuff, with a rock. And if you can't respect that, you know, I don't know. We get people that kind of want to look at this and say, well, they're Native Americans. Yes, they're Native Americans, but we're not in that time period where the Cowboy and Indians. I think we did a video on that a while back.
Trail of Tears and that time kind of time period.
This is way before any tribal activity type. This was back when civilizations here were
uncivilized.
I mean, it was millions of people here. I think that's something else that a lot of people don't understand. This continent was covered with Native Americans. It wasn't simply something out west or little pockets of people here or there. And I think Spike's described it before. If you want to think about what the people that we're finding relics from now, it's more like an Amazonian type culture. The tools, but you know, the stuff that we find, it's just not a tool. To us, it's a work of art.
Yeah.
Somebody sit down there and if you've ever tried to nap, and both of us have, it's not something that you just do.
No.
The skills these people had and to live the life that they lived here without all the creature comforts that we're afforded is just incredible. My great grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee, so I do have a stake in this somewhat. You know, I can say, you know, this is my ancestors. But what we're finding is way before then. So, you know, we're, like I said, we just kind of wanted to make that point clear. These are tools, these are relics. This is stuff that they used every day. It's not ceremonial stuff that was buried with somebody. This is stuff that was left behind from a bygone civilization.
You know what I found really interesting, and I guess I've never really considered it before. I was watching one of your videos a couple weeks ago, and you picked up a really crudely made point, and you said, look, probably a kid made that. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, what else would they been doing? They weren't going to school. They weren't playing video games. They were hacking on rocks, making points, knives, and they were doing stuff there. You know, I mean, and for some reason it was like a light bulb, and I was like, well, Matt, that's pretty dumb. You should have thought of that.
Spike and I talked about this for years because, you know, and there's different theories on life expectancies for these folks. I've heard it as young as 35 to 40 years old was an older person in those periods. But back then, you were going to have to do that at some point in your life. If you know, whether you were a male or a female, you were going to be able to produce something for that society, whether it was weaving a basket or whether it was pottery or making these points. And it would only make sense that you got started as early as possible. you couldn't wait till you were 18, 19 years old and decide, you know, you're going to move out of mom and dad's little hut and go to make your own points. You know, you can't. I mean, you can do it now, but you know, back then you had to be able to produce something and be part of that society.
And they were no doubt craftsmen. Some of them were more skilled than others, and probably in certain cultures, they were some that were dedicated craftsmen that made some of these points that it took years to learn how to make those things. And but the majority of what we find, I guarantee, are made by everyday people just trying to hack out a living, like Randy said.
Yeah. Just knocking into the chat real quick. Ross Walker said, I don't see where it was at, but he said he found his first point the other day. He's stoked.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I remember my first one. So
yeah.
once you get bit and you start finding them, it's hard to walk away from it.
I found my first point in about 1963. That was a long time ago, and it was several years before I found another. But from that period, from the time I found that first point, and it was a crude knife-like point with a base on it, and all those years, it was about 2 inches long, and all those years I was trying to figure out how did that thing fit on the end of an arrowhead. It just didn't make sense. Come to find out, it didn't. And those are the things that, as you get into this, you learn. Very few of what we find are true arrowheads. You know, most of them are knives and
or
dark
points.
Yeah. But yeah, congratulations on your first find.
Yeah, for sure. Mine was, like the spike was in 63. Mine was in probably 74 when I found my first point, and it was actually down here on the coast. And it was a Tallahassee point, and unfortunately, it was stolen several years ago. But everything since then I've got.
Yeah.
You never forget that first one. I can tell you to this day, and probably walk you to the exact spot that I found it.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like that first, for me, my first Civil War bullet or anything first thing tangible I found. You know, they. So in those years, could you guesstimate how many points or artifacts you found since then, individually or together as a group?
No, God, no.
Hundreds.
I mean, if you counting brokes, bases, and points and tips, no. Way past hundreds. Yeah. So Randy and I together, and probably in the last 4 years. I don't know. I've probably got a bunch. I probably got 1,000 just broke bases in there, you know, or points or stuff that I found, and Randy's probably got as many himself, you know. So no, we couldn't guesstimate. No,
just a bunch.
Yeah,
and every one of them special.
No, yeah.
You know, and people, you know, we live in an area where we don't always get the really nice points that you may see in the Missouri area.
North
Mississippi. We don't have the material here to produce those really big points. We got a lot of color to the points that we find here, and they're pretty. But even when we find something that's broken half or the point off of one, and you can look at the material and the craftsmanship on it, and it still excites us. You know,
you look at the flaking. You pick it up and you clean it off, and you look at the flaking on it, and you think every little flake, somebody knocked that off. Somebody shaped that, with purpose, you know. And it's just some people get excited at that, and
well, you guys kind of hit on something too, and again, something I never considered. You said you don't have the material, and I was like, well, they got rocks down there, but you guys don't have large size rocks. What I would, you know, what an average size, maybe if you had a 4-inch rock, you had a huge piece of material to work with, right?
Right. Tallahassee quartzite would be the biggest chunk of material that we would have native to this area, and it's still 4 counties up. Yeah. And that's only found in a small area. That's why we love to find stuff made from Tallahassee quartzite, because while it's not rare, it's a native rock. It's something other than gravel chert. Mississippi and I love to say this,
loves
Mississippi Citronelle Gravel Chert. That's something we learned from Rob.
How long did it take for you to figure out how to say that?
Yeah, but it's river rock, and depending on the heat treatment, that's where the different colors usually come from. And we learned a new one last week is raw cobble chert, and I found a nice point made out of that on the creek, and unheat treated raw cobble chert. So
we didn't even know that existed.
Didn't know that existed.
We know that now. So.
Rob helped us out with that, but yeah, you figure you walk out to the river and those cobbles, the bigger the rocks that you find, that's what they were made. That's what they had to work with down here. And so when we find a bigger point, we get pretty excited.
Yeah, I mean, anything that's unbroke is exciting to me. Ralph McGee asked, have you ever found any pieces unique so you were able to match them together?
Yes, exactly. We have
several of them.
Several.
Yeah.
I saw on the video, the last video you guys produced, or two videos.
Zach actually found 2 pieces.
Yeah.
Trey was with us last year in a field that we found the base, and we walked around a little while longer and ended up finding the point that went with his. And we've done it. We've actually dug points before
years apart.
Years apart.
Yeah, matched them up.
Matched them up in spite scales.
Years apart.
Yeah, well, because those were broken by a plow or a disc in a field, and those are you can understand that. But to dig one like Zach did,
2 foot deep.
Yeah, or we dug one several years ago that was 3 foot apart and 12 inches deep. We dug half of it that morning, and about 2 hours later dug the other half. So
that's really exciting. That's you can get excited about that. It's broke, but the odds of finding that is kind of overwhelming.
But it's cool though. It's like finding the point all over again when you match them up.
So I know for a lot of folks watching, or we're going to be watching, I hope. So you guys not only find like rock artifacts, you find pottery artifacts. I remember an episode where you guys found a clay trade bead.
Yeah,
yes, it's actually a hardstone.
Yeah, it's jasper. I'm pretty sure it's jasper. Yeah,
Kenneth found that, of course. Like I said, we brought him on, and he finds all the really cool stuff. And he at that point he hadn't found a lot of stuff. So when he would find something, he said, "I think I got something right here." And of course, me and Spike, we're in full scale scream mode, and he's just what is this? But he's found the
game ball,
ball in the creeks. He's found the beads, stuff that I've got one game ball. Spike's got one that we found in 30 or 40 years of hunting, and Kenneth does it the first year.
Yeah.
And
so explain what a game ball is.
It's made out from pottery, and I've got my own theory on that. It's baked clay. It's just made just like a pottery vessel, but
made into a marble. But
my theory is that when people were sitting around making pottery, kids being kids, we're going to run up and say, "Make me whatever they call a ball. Make me out of your spare clay or whatever." And parents being parents, they say okay, and they rolled out a ball and treated it with the rest of the pottery, and when it came out and cooled off, then they gave it to the kids. And that's my theory. I mean, and until somebody comes up with a better one, I mean, that's what I'm going with.
I always figured it was something that they'd throw at somebody.
Yeah, I mean, that makes all the sense of the world. I mean, it was the easiest way to manufacture a toy. Get out of my hair, go over there and play with that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm sure they had other toys, but they were probably made out of wood or bone, and most of those are rotted away. So all that's left are the balls, and we tickled it. I said we've got 3 in all these years, and
then there's places, a lot of, especially north of us, that people find those type artifacts, by the tens and dozens, But for us to find one, especially in a creek environment, is unique. Mine was found in a plowed field. Spike was found in a plowed field. So it was a little different for Kenneth to pull this clay game ball out of a creek.
Because he'd been pulling arrowheads points out left and right. And But we did give him the best spot.
Yeah, we always did. We probably say, Kenneth, dig over there. We give him
Kenneth, you go over there. It'll be fine. And
and we just say, Kenneth, go over there to the bank and stay over there, and we're going to dig right here for a while.
You're on your own, buddy.
So, talking about and going into creeks, what made you move into creeks? Obviously, you guys talked earlier about how you were looking for plateaus above the floodplain, but still not too high that you would have to walk up and down a big hill. And that's an interesting point because everybody thinks about soldiers and things like that. These were real people. They weren't soldiers. They didn't have some sort of bigger, overshadowing mission that they had to accomplish, high ground and stuff like that.
Just living.
But so, I guess even then, that's something I've learned today. You guys are just see, when I get something new, it goes in one ear, stays in, and kicks something else out the other side.
Yeah, I'm like that on my Gilligan Island trip. I keep it.
I'll start. We were Randy's uncle, cousin, and they kept telling Randy, y'all need to get in the creeks. They knew we were walking fields. So for years and years, and Randy had said that Marvin and Scott say we need to get in the creeks. And we couldn't wrap our minds around getting in a creek and finding one. Then we were watching, shout out Joseph McCoy, Ditch Walker. And that got one of the best channels on YouTube as far as finding airheads. And we were watching him and a couple other people. And Randy and I got to talking and said, we got to try this. And he just happened to have a creek that he had access to. And one day we just decided to make it happen. And we walked.
Which was, to kind of elaborate on that story, it was kind of almost accidental.
Yeah.
Spike had got in a motorcycle accident, and
actually my friend
or his friends had got
in one of them.
They came back from a motorcycle trip early, and he said, let's go get in a creek. So we headed to a creek that I had access to that I had deer hunted on, and we actually got lost. We took a right when we should have took a left, and we were kind of almost toward the end of that creek, and we were standing around, and Spike rolled this huge Tallahassee point out of a hole, and at that point the lights went on. It's like, hey, this is what we've got to do. If you could find it by act, because we were just walking around looking kind of aimlessly, but when we seen that point come out of a hole, that we had never had anybody say, hey, this is what you need to do. We kind of accidentally figured it out, and
so if we can walk along and see them in these little holes, maybe if we get down and dig these little holes out, and it just kind of grew from that. And
that point's on the wall in here. We call it the Genesis Rock because that's where we got started with it.
Yeah. It's our first video that we ever put out, and I had made videos before, but we were doing this just for ourselves, so we would have it and
later on.
And we got to think, well, if we're gonna do this, we might as well do it right. So we decided to go ahead and do the better job on the videos.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think that's interesting because what I've learned in the water hunting aspect over the last summer is that 90%, it doesn't matter if the artifacts are there. If the bottom's not right, you can't get to them.
That's
exactly right. That is exactly right. Down here, we look for hard bottom creeks with, they call it soapstone down here, but it's actually just a hard clay base. It's where the sand gets washed away and you're down to what's called hard pan. Mm-hmm. And that clay will erode and it'll leave holes in there, and the gravel and everything else settles in these holes. Now, we find really cool bottles. Of course, we keep everything we find that's old.
Petrified wood in there.
Mm-hmm. I've got a bison horn that we were told was probably 30,000 years old that we pulled out of a creek.
Wow.
We got teeth, we got turtle carapaces, stuff and it all settles in those holes or gets covered up with a little bit of gravel, and that's what we look for. We find those holes. If you got a lot of sand, and there may be gravel under it, and some of the guys we follow are having a lot of luck digging through that sand layer and getting to the gravel layer.
Yeah.
If you can find those layers, then that's where the artifacts are going to be. You know, and it may not, like I said, it may be some pottery, it may be broke stuff, it may be fossils. And Spike and I are the same way on this stuff. We keep everything.
Yeah.
If it's old, we keep it.
It's a good looking lighter knot. It's coming home. So
yeah, I got lighter knots stacked up in the yard in my living room. Yeah, it's pretty that we keep it. You know, we drug out probably 150 pounds of petrified wood a year or so ago, and you know, just give it to people that would appreciate it. And of course, I've got it all over the house with points sitting on it, just displaying stuff.
Yeah, but that's neat. I mean, that's like the unintended treasure that it was just secondary to what you were really looking for. So it just makes a bonus of the day.
It does. I found a quart of, I guess, a pint milk bottle last year. It's probably, 100 years old, but it looked like it had been put in that creek the day before.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a point, but it's something that's old and collectible for us, and it's something that it's on video, and I'll always remember it, and I'll get to pass it down to a grandchild at some point. And
that beauty's in the eye of the beholder. If you like it, keep it. That's what I've.
And we keep a lot of stuff. We walk through these creeks, and there's times when I say, I tell Spike, because there's times when, like I said, we'll walk 5 or 6 hours on a creek, and you start picking up bottles or petrified wood and lighter knots, and you go in a creek with a 6-pound backpack with some waters in it, and I come out and I got 40, 50 pounds of lighter knots and bottles and broke up stuff, And
he's usually carrying mine too, because
and usually carrying him or pulling in the guy. So that's always the adventure part for me is where, what am I going to do with Spike today?
Years ago, we used to joke about what was going to happen when it get to the point that I couldn't do this anymore. And we found out a couple weeks ago, I had to carry him. So
well, at least you're not dragging him, just grabbing him by the hair, pulling him down the creek. Tommy Venison asks, have you boys ever found any manos or metates?
I have found one mano or a grinding stone many years ago, but no metates. We've never, and there's no big.
We just don't have the big rocks. And we find hammerstones, which may be the size of our hand or a little bit smaller. And I found a couple of years ago what we were looking at. It was probably a weapon. The way it was formed, just almost perfectly round, and it was polished.
Beautiful work piece of rock.
Hardstone. We just don't, and a lot of that stuff, when you get the really big pieces of hardstone here, it was probably traded for or brought in here from that culture.
That's the other thing I was going to ask is do you find a lot of trade material? So for folks who may or may not know, trade culture was huge. They traded all up and down the East Coast. I lived in Yellowstone National Park for a few years, and they can actually match up obsidian that came from the park, and they found it as far east as Ohio. Do you guys ever find any of that kind of material?
Occasionally. I've got a point that I found about 10 miles as the crow flies from the beach here in Hancock County, Mississippi. It's made out of Horse Creek chert. And if I'm not mistaken, Horse Creek chert only comes from eastern Tennessee. So that material was traded all the way down to Hancock County, Mississippi. But there was a site on the Pearl River in Hancock County, Mississippi that was dated to about 3,500 years ago, which was tied into the Poverty Point culture in West Monroe, Louisiana. Everybody knows about Poverty Point. There was a lot of trade going on then. And we're not too far from that site here over in Hancock County. And that point is probably one of the biggest, the farthest pieces of material that we found. Now, Randy has found some Tallahassee quartzite all the way over in Louisiana, and
just several, a couple hundred miles or so away from anywhere that stuff would have been taken out of the ground.
But that's as far as we can tell. That's about the most everything we find is made out of the same stuff. It's either Tallahassee quartzite or Mississippi citronelle gravel chert.
So Adventures in Dirt was asking. He said, "How do you know you found an ancient stone tool?" So if you guys could describe what you look for when you pick up a rock, for anybody who may not know, you know, just the kind of the principal things other than shape.
Yeah, as far as that, knowing it's a relic, it's all context. You know, you can be walking in a creek that's full of big rocks, and more than likely it's just a big rock in a creek. But when you're in South Louisiana or South Mississippi, where there's not any big rocks like that, and you're in an area where we're picking up the debitage, the flakes, the chips, the points, and all that, and you come across a big rock, then and you can see the pecking marks on it. It was something that was brought there for a reason, for a purpose. It may have been brought from a creek in North Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia. Like I said, it's context. We found things before. We found what we considered a nutting stone that was made out of sandstone over in Louisiana one time digging. It was we were about 3 foot deep and in a fire pit. We were finding the charcoal and points and stuff. It was definitely indented. You could see where somebody had probably used it. And if you're familiar with sandstone, it's probably not something you want to use to make your food with, because it's going to lose some of that grit. But over there, it's all over the place. It was big pieces of that, and it was probably it had been brought into there. It was so in that context, it was probably used for some type of tool there. If I'd have found it in my yard or something like that, it'd just been a rock. But it's about where you find it, and
just remember, context is everything. And then once you learn, of course, that's the hard stone stuff, but work tools, points and scrapers and cores and blades,
you'll see the flaking in the work.
Once you know what flaking is, once you know what a work rock is, it's second nature. When you picked up thousands and thousands of pieces, but in fact, you're going to do it quicker than that. We had my great nieces with us here a couple of years ago, and had them in a field hunting points, and within an hour, they knew exactly what they were looking for.
They were looking for the edges and the flaking and stuff like that, and found one of the prettiest points I've ever seen. I come out of those fields. His niece found, grandniece. Once you get it, you get that eye. You know, you know what it is. You can tell the difference between a rock that's been broke up and a rock that's been worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then Tommy Venison, and also the polish on a stone too.
Exactly. And like I said, and a lot of the hammerstones, we actually did a video a while back when Spike and I first started hunting together in Louisiana. There was one particular area that we hunted, and we were finding hammerstones every time we went in there, big hammerstones, and you could see the packing on them where they had actually been used for a tool. Well, it's a long ways back into where we were into that field, so we would pick them up and throw them up against this big oak tree because we didn't want to have to pack them out with everything else. And as the years went by, and our knowledge about what these people did with that hammerstone increased, and our appreciation grew for what it was, we realized, we should have been bringing all of that stuff out. Well, we went back 3 years ago.
Yeah, with a
probe, and went around that oak tree and ended up recovering 2 or 3 or 4 of those hammerstones that we unfortunately tossed away 20-something odd years ago.
Right.
But you'll even now, even after thousands of years, you can see on that hard stone the packing. If it was a hammerstone, whether it was something that was polished, to use for a grinding tool or something like that, or even a weapon.
On the ads, you can. That's what I love to look for, the polish on the ads, on the worked ads. Flint ads are small. Down here we have smaller ones because they didn't have the bigger rocks. But you looked at on those edges, you can see. Kenneth dug one up here a while back. It just had the polish on the end. You could tell those people had used it, and that shows work. That's just cool. That's like an impact fracture. You find a point with an impact fracture. That's just cool to me. I mean, they were using that thing and they threw it and hit something and it may have been a tree, but it was used. They brought it back, threw it down, put them another one on. So if you don't find that cool, then this hobby may not be for you. We just
So, well, gentlemen, we are quickly approaching an hour, and it sounds like there's a pretty big storm in my background. But I want to personally thank you guys for coming on the show this evening. Personally, every time I watch your stuff, I learn something. Something else may be pushed out the other side, but that's all right. It's probably just an important passcode or something like that.
We really do.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy your stuff.
Yeah.
Thank everybody else for tuning in and listening to us jabber.
Yeah, now go out and watch a bunch of our videos.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure they'll be doing that. Guys like you, I would have loved to talk to Kenneth, and maybe we'll be able to put this together and we can do it again sometime.
A little bit to talk.
Yeah. Maybe we can get up and see you one day.
Yeah. Well, you guys keep threatening coming to Diggin in Virginia. I'll set you up. We'll go out and look for some stones or find some bullets or do something. But the offer is always open if you guys make it to Richmond. If I'll take Barb Connell out, I'll take anybody out. So.
We appreciate it, man. Thanks for having us on.
Appreciate it.
So if I get you guys just to hang out for a second, I'm going to send you something, and we'll wrap this up. All right. Cool. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So, man, these guys are absolutely fantastic. If you haven't, go check out Heart Breaker Relics on YouTube. Go see them on Facebook. Look up Heart Breaker Relics. They have a great channel, great page. The knowledge is incredible, and it's something you can't find in a book. And that's really what I like to talking about guys like Spike and Randy, who have so much experience doing all this stuff. You can't beat experience. You can't buy it. You can only hope to be able to learn from these guys. And I'm really, really thankful for them coming on the show tonight. I'd also like to thank everybody, Adventures in Dirt, Bob Connell with Dirt Pirates, Relics and Roots, Ross Walker, Ralph McGee, Tommy Venison. There's a bunch of other folks who have kind of come and gone from the oldies and goodies. But thank you guys for tuning in to the live stream this evening. We're going to have another one next Tuesday, and it should be really great. I got a whole list of great guests coming up, and these guys were just a part of the great stuff we're doing here on Gone Diggin'. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get them into a DIV. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed this live stream tonight. If you did, reach over there and hit that like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. New episode on Thursday about noon. As always, thanks for watching Gone Diggin'. I hope you guys get out and get to find something this week. So, until then, we'll see you soon.